Good afternoon. The subject of this presentation is the relationship between interpersonal relations and subjective experience of happiness in Korean elderly. My name is Miran Lee, Department of Social Welfare, Kosin University. First, research background. 2020 is expected to be the year of changing the Korean population flow. With the incorporation of the baby boomers into the elderly population, the explosive increases of the elderly population and the natural decline of the population will begin in the future. By 2015, 4 out of 10 citizens will be elderly. As such, Korea's rapid aging population accounted for 15.5% of the population aged 65 or older in 2019. By 2025, it will become a super-aged society with 20.3%, exceeding 10 million. As the number of elderly people is expected to increase continuously, a variety of Korean elderly welfare policies are required to prepare for the future society. 2. On the other hand, elderly households accounted for 21.8% of the total household in 2019. And this is expected to continue to increase and reach 47.9% by 2045. In particular, since the proportion of single-person households is the largest at 34.2%, various links and practical support plans are required for the elderly living alone, which are expected to occupy the majority of Korean society in the future. 3. Actually, longevity in old age is affected by subjective satisfaction and happiness in life during the lifetime of the elderly. According to previous studies, according to the researchers at the Duke and U.S. Singapore Medical School, who studied the relationship between happiness and longevity introduced in the journal Age and Aging. As a result, a follow-up survey of 4,000 people over the age of 60, the mortality rate decreased by the whopping 9% for every 1 point in the happiness score. 4. Comparing the subjective satisfaction and happiness of people around the world by age. Middle-aged people in their 40s and 50s have the lowest happiness. After that, the feeling of happiness increased, and in future, likewise, happiness by age is a small curve. 6. In the journal Social Science and Medicine, a British research team, as a result of analyzing the correlation between age and happiness index for 2 million people in 40 countries around the world. As a whole, the happiness index was announced as a drawing, a U shape. Happiness index is high in childhood and lowest in 40s, and it rises again as we get older. And when we reach 70, it recovers as much as the happiness index we felt in childhood. 7. However, it was found that Koreans peaked in their feelings of happiness in their 20s, and as they age, the proportion of the people who think they are unhappy increases. This is a result that clearly shows the crisis of the elderly in Korean society. Not only are Korean elderly people's feelings of happiness lower than those of the world's elder people, it shows that the feelings of happiness declines more and more as the age increases. Through these results, what does this suggest about Korea's elderly welfare policy, which is on the verge of entering an ultra-aging society? 8. Recently, Korea ranked 61, down 7 places from last year. In the 2020 World Happiness Report, published by SDSN, an advisory organization under the United Nations. 9. Need for research. The World Happiness Report says, when an epidemic such as Corona-19 spreads in a highly trusted society, we find ways to work together to repair damage and rebuild a better life. Therefore, he explained, if neighbors and institutions have a strong will to help each other, they increase a sense of belonging and give them a sense of pride, giving them an advantage to compensate for financial losses. As a result of aging of the population. Interest in the feeling of happiness in old age, which has been prolonged in modern society, is accelerating more and more. It is a very important task in preventing and solving the elderly problem to prepare a foundation for the elderly to spend a satisfactory and happy retirement while adjusting to the changing environment. Ten, research purpose and significance. This study is to explore how the elderly's interpersonal relations affect the elderly's happiness. Analyzing how the elderly's demographic and sociological factors and environmental factors affect the elderly's interpersonal relationships and happiness. Therefore, this study scores the health and happiness of elderly Koreans by analyzing the factors related to the elderly happiness that will contribute to the prolongation of healthy life in the local community. This study is meaningful to use it as a basic data for the elderly welfare practice plan that improve the feeling of happiness of the elderly, who will occupy the majority of Korean society and contributes to the improvement of happiness and quality of life of all Koreans. 11. Research method. This study is on non-probability sampling to examine the happiness of the elderly men and women in the community according to the degree of daily interpersonal relations. A total of 62 respondents were surveyed, and 42 of the survey subjects were male and 2 female elderly. 20 female elderly. I'm sorry. 12. Result. Table 2 is satisfaction and happiness in interpersonal relations according to age of male elderly. Result: men aged 66 or 70 have high interpersonal satisfaction, and men aged 61 or 65 had higher level of happiness. Table 3 is satisfaction and happiness in interpersonal relations according to age of female elderly. Elderly woman aged 61 or 65 had higher level of interpersonal satisfaction and happiness. Table 4. Satisfaction and happiness in interpersonal relationships according to the composition of cohabitation families of elderly males. Single men were living with their children had higher level of satisfaction and happiness in interpersonal relationships. Table 5. Satisfaction and happiness in interpersonal relationships according to the composition of female elderly family together. Women in the form of children and couple had higher interpersonal relationship and satisfaction and happiness. Table 6. Satisfaction and happiness in interpersonal relationships according to the objects of the elderly male. Mostly men who were alone had the highest level of interpersonal satisfaction, and men with their children had the highest level of happiness. Table 7. Satisfaction and happiness in interpersonal relationships according to the objective of female elderly. Mostly women alone had the highest level of interpersonal satisfaction, and women with children had the highest level of happiness. Table 8. Happiness according to the satisfaction of male seniors in interpersonal relationships. The group with a score of 30 or higher in interpersonal satisfaction was higher in happiness. Table 9. Happiness according to the satisfaction of female seniors in interpersonal relationship. The group with a score of 30 or higher in interpersonal satisfaction was higher in happiness. Discussion and suggestion. In Korea, there are counseling support and programs provided by welfare centers to improve interpersonal relationships among the elderly. As the survival period has been extended, the field of interest in the happiness of the elderly has also emerged, and the demand is increasing. Along with these social changes, various services are being developed to support the elders' health and life, to ensure the elder's health and stable life. Difficulties exist in satisfying their needs. Therefore, re-evaluating social service systems and programs related to the elderly In addition, efforts are needed to develop services and programs that can be provided according to the characteristics of the elderly, so that the feeling of happiness in the elderly can be improved more effectively. This is the end. Thank you.